So some pretty big news today as the Warhammer 40k discount magazine Combat Patrol is going live. Let's talk about Terminator Captains for £3 and the overall value of the entire sub and some of the different options for picking it up. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today it appears to be launch day for the Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol magazine, coming first to the UK and shortly after to the rest of the world. So I thought we'd take a closer look as to exactly what the magazine offers, what the discounts are, and some of the best ways that you might be able to get the best of them. Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol is essentially the Hachette Parkworks magazine for 10th edition. These ones have been quite well received in the past, with the 8th edition one being Warhammer Conquest and the 9th edition one being Warhammer Imperium. We'd known that this was coming from pre-orders and trial runs in January and things. We knew it was going to be coming out in August, and it now looks like today is go time. It looks like you can subscribe on their website now, and the launch date is the 28th of August. The general idea for this thing is that it's a weekly magazine that comes with Warhammer miniatures, and often individual issues can be kind of spectacularly cheaper than buying the same set of miniatures from Games Workshop. Say for example in the Imperium magazine you had things like one issue that had 3 Scorpet destroyers and a pot of silver paints, over £35 from Games Workshop, but you got it in an issue that cost less than £10. The main attraction of the magazines are the miniatures. The magazines are quite nice as intro things to the hobby for people who are just getting into 40k, and they can have some entertainment factor for current collectors, though I feel like the main hype tends to be around the actual miniature offerings. The magazines are kind of thin but punchy, having lore painting guides and mini games for the miniatures that you have so far. Plus they come with some hobby tools and things, some initial hobby starter sets, and then some paints and brushes as going along. This time round, the price for the magazine is £10 or €15, the premium sub going up to £12 or €17.50. As usual, the first issues are discounted to try and get people interested. I certainly think they will do that, given that the first one with 2 40k characters is just £3, kind of a hilarious markdown compared with GW prices. The run of the magazine is going to be a full 90 issues that you can unsub whenever you'd like to. I think it's a 28-day notice period. And then after the UK, it should come to plenty of other countries around the world as well. If we go by the rough timescales of Warhammer Conquest and Warhammer Imperium, it'll be in the USA around about January 2025 if everything goes the same way. Australia maybe around about June 2025, and there were plenty of other European countries that it came to as well. If you want to know when it's likely to come to you, maybe worth checking out when the Imperium magazine released in your area if it did. For the overall contents of the magazine, you do get a pretty spectacular amount of Warhammer 40k plastic. Here's the full picture of the sub-contents as per the Combat Patrol website. Essentially 9 different Warhammer 40k Combat Patrols, plus a whole bunch of special units and a few other things besides that aren't even pictured here. In the initial promo materials, they had a slightly different picture to this one that looks like this one is the final thing. Overall, quite a lot of Warhammer goodness with kits large and small. In the contents of this, there's basically the Combat Patrol box sets for 9 different factions. 3 of them are the previous 9th edition Combat Patrols, the rest are the current 10th edition ones. We've got Space Marines and Tyranids with their subset of the miniatures that came out of the Leviathan box, Lees of Votann with their Hernkin Pioneers and Chthonian Berserks, Eldari with their Wraith Lord and the Wind Riders, the Astra Militarum with its field batteries, then the older 9th edition Combat Patrols for Genestealer Cults, Orcs and Chaos. In particular, the Genestealer Cults I think is quite a big win there, given that that one was such a good Combat Patrol before they updated it. The Orcs is the one with the Death Dread and the Death Copters, and the Chaos Marines one is the previous one with the Hell Brutes and Havocs. Finally, there's the World Eaters Combat Patrol, which is typically considered quite a good one with quite a lot of Khorne Berserkers in it. As mentioned, on top of this you get 1 extra kit for each army, which I'll mention next. Besides that, you also get 31 paints over the course of the collection. I think ideally they're trying to hand them out so you've got the appropriate paints to paint the models at the time, though it's a little bit scattergun. There's a couple more miniatures for people who subscribe to the full run from Hachette Parkworks itself. Plus there's also a premium subscription option where you get an 8 additional kits, which does seem like quite a good deal if you took that as a standalone offering. For the additional kits within this picture though, there's basically 1 per faction, and the Space Marines get 1 extra model too. The Eldari get 5 Wraith Guard, the Chaos get 5 Chaos Terminators, the Guard get heavy weapon teams, the Genestealer Cults get their Jackal bags, the Space Marines and the Tyranids just get character options with a Chaplain on bag and the Parasite of Mortrex, the Votann get some Einhir Hearthguard, the Orcs of Boomdacker Snazwagon, and the World Eaters perhaps do one of the best of all with a Forge Fiend or Mauler Fiend kit. On top of that, the Space Marines get this unique sculpt, Infernus Marine Sergeant. He comes out with issue 5 on his own in that issue. A unique sculpt is often one of the selling points of these magazines, and these are often more valuable than they look. I remember when they've had unique lieutenant models in the past, and they've tended to be resold on eBay for weirdly high prices. I guess that does tend to be what happens when there's supply and demand, when a lot of people want a miniature, but GW don't actually directly sell it. On the website, we've got the contents of the first few issues as well. Issue 1 is this one, which, as mentioned, I think is their kind of slight loss leader one to try and get people hooked. And this one's basically £3 or €4 for a Space Marine Captain and Tyranid Prime. These are the ones that came out in the Leviathan box set and are in the starter sets. So basically a Space Marine Terminator Captain and a Winged Prime for £3 for the pair of them, which is just kind of hilarious given that if you try and get the same things from Games Workshop web store, they're around about £50 total. So at least in theory discount land, they're less than 10% of the price that they'd normally be. Though admittedly, if you do want to pick them up, the way to get them realistically is through the starter sets right now, and you can find them on eBay for pretty reasonable prices. Still though, if you were feeling industrious, prices this weirdly low could be very interesting for making certain squads of things. With some spare parts, you could try and convert up a Monopose Terminator squad for £15 basically. You just need some borrowed Power Fists or Chain Fists. You could convert the Terminator Captain into other characters, maybe special characters or Terminator Chaplain perhaps if you can find a suitable Crozius, or maybe use the Prime as Tyranid Warriors or some Legend Strikes. In any case, I'm sure this will be very popular as it's just far cheaper than Warhammer ever tends to sell for. Otherwise, for the next issues, issue 2 is for 3 Von Ryan's Leapers, which looks kind of nice for £7. Again, available in the starter sets, but if you were a Tyranid player and you wanted more of them, this is cheaper than you'd normally be able to get them just being resold on eBay and places. Issue 3 is £10 for 5 Infernus Marines, which is still good I think, but maybe a little bit more borderline. Issue 4 is 3 paints and a paintbrush. Probably going to be far less interest given that most people tend to pick up the actual paints that they want rather than preset ones. And then for issue 5 it is that unique Infernus Marine, more of a stylistic painting project model that you can add in as a squad leader, but as mentioned, unique sculpts often tend to be really valuable, at least on the second-hand market. It'll be interesting to see exactly how the issues are dispensed after this and which ones are the better deals or not. But out of the first ones, I'd certainly rate the first issue and then the one with the Von Ryan's Leapers and the Infernus Marine Sergeants to be the pick of these, and getting 5 Infernus Marines if you wanted more of them for £10 definitely isn't the worst either. For picking up contents of these magazines, there's quite a few different options and all of them have their pros and cons. It does feel like maybe a bit more of a convoluted subject than it should be. If you did just want the entire run of the subscription, then it does seem that probably the best offer is to subscribe to Hachette Parkworks directly. That's to be making the judgment call on the entire collection together, as opposed to trying to cherry pick any one or two things out of it. Certainly the first delivery looks to be kind of spectacular value there. On the subscription on the website, they have it listed as literally £3 for issue 1 and also getting issue 2 free, plus also a Citadel modelling kit at the same time. That's just kind of obscene value, and I believe that postage is with Royal Mail, and I think it's completely free for Hachette Parkworks deliveries if you've subscribed. And between all that, if it's possible just to literally pick up this first delivery and then cancel, that's about one of the best discount deals on Warhammer that there's basically ever been, I think. 1 squad, 2 special characters, plus a model kit, all for £3 including delivery. Kind of crazy when if you bought the same thing from Games Workshop, it'd be getting on for about £80. Then after that though, the second delivery goes up to the normal price of £40, and you get issue 3, 4, 5 and 6. So that's 5 Infernus Marines, the Infernus Sergeant, the paints, and whatever's coming in issue 6 that they haven't revealed yet. I wouldn't be too surprised if issue 6 isn't the most exciting, though I guess we'll wait and see. On their terms and conditions, it says you can cancel with 28 days notice. I don't know whether or not that means that you'd be able to cancel after your first delivery has turned up, but before you've been charged for the second one. If so, then that could be kind of ridiculously good. Though to be fair, I feel like even if you just got the first and the second delivery for £43 total, it'd still have worked out to be a pretty good deal overall. For the direct subscription from Hachette Parkworks, they also throw in a bunch of incentives for sticking with the overall subscription as opposed to trying to dip in or out, or just go for individual issues, and these are those. They say that all of these are basically free in the box with other things, but maybe free is a bit of a misnomer if you're still having to pay for the runs of issues. As seen on the previous page, it looks like with the first delivery you get a Citadel modelling kit, which essentially is some plastic cutters and a mould line remover. Then in the third delivery of 4 issues, there's a ring binder system with places to store the magazines. In the fourth delivery, there's a paintbrush set. In the sixth, there's a mug. And in the seventh, there's a Primaris Company Champion miniature, the limited edition one. That came out, I believe, as an event exclusive miniature a while back. He's got some Legends rules, but I guess you could run him as a lieutenant or something. These ones apparently only apply if you subscribe from issues 1, 2, 3 or 4, so basically aimed at people who have bought the sub to start with and stuck through all of it. And to be honest, while they're interesting enough, I don't really feel like they're enough to really decide whether or not you're staying for the entire sub or not. You've really got to judge that on the miniatures in general. I did notice one thing about binders and dividers down in their FAQs. It does sound like they're trying to do a sneaky upsell in selling people binders and dividers for later issues after you get the first one. It sounds like if you sub after the first few issues from them, they assume that you want to buy binders and dividers and have them charged as an extra £11. The first one coming at issue 7, and then 3 more coming throughout the subscription at 23, 43 and 63, which I think you'd have to pay for even if you'd subbed from the start. They also mentioned some special issues as well, which you'd be automatically subbed for, where they say that items and prices might vary. And it's maybe a little bit disturbing to say that you're automatically opted in to receive these binders and special issues unless you opt out of them. So essentially they've got their core deal and then upsell you on an unspecified amount of things that you might or might not want, unless you actually contact them via their customer services to opt out of those. And that might well be something to think about if you literally want the miniatures and don't want to roll the dice on the other things. I seem to remember there was some sort of controversy with art books being shipped out to people who didn't really want them in the last sub, which if that is true then it sounds like a bit of a scummy business practice, to be honest. I saw a great big Reddit thread where people were arguing that it's illegal. In any case, I think if I was subbing directly through Hachette Partworks and jumping into the whole subscription, unless you're not too concerned with spending a bit extra on some random extra goodies throughout the subscription, it might well be worth contacting them to opt out of the extra bits. There are actually a surprising amount of other options for picking up issues though, again all of which have their pros and cons. Another one that's been a popular one in the UK last time was ordering through Forbidden Planet. This one can be one option for trying to get individual issues without subscribing to the entire thing. Basically, it looks like they've got a mailing list that you can sign up to notify you when each issue goes live. They've got the first 5 issues listed on their website right now, so it could be an interesting option for people who say just want the Unique and Furnace Marine one, or just want the £3 first issue, or just want the Von Ryan's Leapers, for example. The downside for this option is I believe that you'd wind up paying individual postage, which I think is around about £3 per issue. It does mean that if you want the entire subscription, that's not going to be the best way to do it, but it could be a good option as an alternative way to get your hands on just one issue. Quite a lot of these are going to be still really good deals at £13 as opposed to £10. It means that you can trim the fat of a lot of things like a bunch of extra paints that you might or might not want. I'll link their sites down in the video description. That one is an affiliate link that will help support Auspex Tactic a little if you did order anything through there. It could be a good option for some, and I feel like the mail alerts could be fairly useful given the demand on certain issues of discounted Warhammer. Otherwise though, there's lots of other options beyond that. You might be able to find individual issues in physical stores. This can be a bit hit and miss and depends on how convenient those stores are or how close they are to you. I believe some newsagents will stock them. I believe that WH Smith had some last time. Though feel free to let me know what your experiences were. In general, I believe that some of the first few issues out of the collection tended to be far more commonly present than later ones. I don't believe that many stores chose to carry the magazine late into the sub, even if some of those issues were potentially some of the most interesting ones. Otherwise, Hachette has a system where you can order individual issues through them if they have any bonus supply. Again, this one can be a bit hit and miss, as the really good ones that are objectively great deals will sell very fast and get scalped, but perhaps some of the more mid-value ones might linger around a bit and could still give discounts. I was able to get a few good discounts on Space Marine deals from Warhammer Conquest. Local newsagents might be able to help out. They can generally order in supplies of magazines if you did want this on the regular. And also could be worth checking out the second-hand market. Generally lots of things will turn up being resold on eBay. Some people doing some industrious scalping no doubt, but plenty of normal hobbyists just selling off bits that they don't want out of the sub. And either way it should depress the prices of certain miniature kits far lower than Games Workshop would normally sell them. So it could just be worth keeping an eye on certain miniatures that come out in Combat Patrol for potentially a very easy way to get hold of the miniatures, even if the discount that you might get on eBay won't be as good as getting the magazines direct from somewhere. As to whether or not the overall sub is a good deal or not, I did some calculations on this in the last video where I took a look at the updated image for them. The whole run of the magazine should be £787 unless Hachette wind up catching you out and making you pay for extra binders and things. In terms of the models and paints included from Games Workshop, these would cost you around about £1,286. That estimate is using the Combat Patrol boxes, of course, plus the starter set offerings for Tyranids and Space Marines, which are the best way to buy those. It means that theoretically, if you wanted everything, you save around about £500 compared with if you'd just gone out and bought all this direct from GW. Though perhaps a more honest comparison is weighing it up against discount retailers in the area, typically offering around about 15% off as an example, and that would mean that you could buy the models there from £1,092. Still though, it's a fairly impressive saving, around about £305 off that, or 26% even compared with discounters. Finally, to look at it another way, if you weren't interested in any of the paints and hobby supplies and you just wanted to look at the models alone, that would reduce the value by around about another £124. That roughly means that you save around about 20% versus discount retailers. A little bit more of a slim pickings there, but still kind of notable, even if you are getting some fairly scattergun things. As mentioned earlier, the subscription does have a premium sub option as well, and this would be just through Hachette Partworks direct subscription, I believe. This option does look potentially really quite interesting. It's essentially £2 or €2.50 extra per issue, so I guess £180 by the end of the 90 issue collection, and these are the miniatures that you get for that. For the Space Marines you get a Brutalis Dreadnought, for the Tyranids it's a Hive Tyrant, for the Chaos it's a Demon Prince, and there's Howling Banshees, Killer Cans, Brokia Thunderkin, a Genestealer called Brew Coven, and biggest and most impressive of all is a Rogel Dawn battle tank for the Astra Militarum, which is really quite a big and expensive kit. The way that these are delivered are in 4 different shipments, roughly every quarter of the magazine's life cycle. The Brutalis Dreadnought and the Hive Tyrant are actually kind of early, coming with issue 15, so I guess that would be drop number 5. So after you've spent around about £200 on the thing, I think the idea behind these is that you only get them if you've subscribed to the issues beforehand, so I guess they try and stop people from essentially getting these and then cancelling after. If you took the premium sub as a standalone deal though, it does look like it's perhaps the cream of the crop for discount wise for this overall offering. The cost of these kits is quite a lot from Games Workshop. If you bought them all separately, it'd be around about £367, where at £2 per issue, the entire cost of the premium sub is £180. So on paper at least, you're getting around about double the amount of money for the amount that you spend on the premium sub. Even weighing in for a 15% discounter, that's still a very good discount on these miniatures themselves. It does seem that they've run the numbers kind of well here. Basically the bit that upsells you on these is the highest value bit. The deal does get better if you buy more, but on the other hand you'd have to weigh that up against already being buried under a mantle of plastic arriving each month. Knowing a lot of people's piles of shame out there, you might have to weigh up as to whether or not you're going to have enough hobby time to actually make use of these and get them up and on the table, or whether you can find some other use for the kits, whether it's for gifting them or selling them. Overall, as it goes, I think that the offering of this is interesting enough. I still say probably the main attraction of it is the fun factor. I think it's pretty much equally buying the miniatures and also the entertainment of having new shiny plastic turn up each month, a few fun little hobby magazines to read, and a sort of focused way to build up a few Warhammer kits each month, or with a slight feel-good factor of getting them a bit cheaper than otherwise. Like before, it does seem kind of aimed at newer players compared with most, though whenever there's discounts on shiny Games Workshop plastic, it's always interesting enough to see from experienced players' point of view as well. Perhaps the most major obvious downside this one's offering in 9 different combat patrols is just really not how most people choose to collect 40k armies if they're given the choice. You'd usually go for a primary army and then expand to another one when you felt like it. And if you invested in sort of similar amounts of money just through buying via discount retailers, you'd have a couple of fairly sizable Warhammer 40k armies on the go that can be playable at higher points levels than just combat patrol. I'd also say that maybe as a downside, the first run of armies being Tyranids and Space Marines is perhaps a little bit disappointing. On the one hand, they are some of the most widely played and biggest interest factions in the game right now, thanks to Leviathan, but also thanks to Leviathan it does mean that the vast majority of people will already have these miniatures in their collections if they wanted them. Things like those Terminator Captains, Winged Primes, and the Psychophage and stuff have all been discounted in the starter sets and Leviathan, and I feel like a lot of Space Marine and Tyranid collectors are already going to have them, and even now you could pick them up very cheaply off eBay or via starter sets if you wanted to. On the overall discount side of things though, The overall sub does have a good discount versus Games Workshop, and maybe it's made even better by the fact that it's Combat Patrol box sets. So essentially you're getting a discount on a discount, and that's even more than the discount sellers offer it for. For full fat Games Workshop plastic kits, it doesn't get a lot better than this, and perhaps crazily so for the first issue. The question is just whether or not you'd want to have all that extra discount versus just getting the actual model kits that you choose and want. The premium sub does look like great added value, at least in terms of the amount of plastic for the money. It might just partly depend as to whether or not you've got into model overload at that point. I know for an absolute fact that I wouldn't be able to keep up with painting everything in this subscription if it came out at the rate that it does. I do paint kind of slowly though, and don't like to cut any corners. I think for most experienced Warhammer collectors, probably individual issues could be the best way to go. Either looking at an individual stores, ordering them in through news agents, maybe signing up to those mail alerts from Forbidden Planet, or just keeping an eye on eBay for some prices going unusually low. Hopefully I'll aim to keep an eye out for which models are coming out when, and particularly draw attention to any individual issues that might be massive discounts versus Games Workshop. If Conquest and Imperium are anything to go by, there'll at least be some of those. In any case, let me know what you think of the Combat Patrol magazine. Look forward to hearing all your takes down in the comments. Would you be tempted to subscribe to it, or would you be tempted to pick up individual issues or anything? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll leave a link both to the Hachette Parkworks page and Forbidden Planet down in the video description. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k news and updates coming. I do try and stay on top of Games Workshop's news and releases where possible. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description down below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.